The valley was quiet, almost eerily so. Mist curled around the rocks and trees, hiding the path ahead. A young girl walked carefully, her bare feet making soft prints on the damp earth. She carried a small basket filled with herbs, the leaves fresh and fragrant. She was searching for a rare flower that grew only in the deepest part of the valley, a flower that could help heal her mother's illness. Every step she took was measured, careful, because she knew stories about this place. Stories of danger, stories of creatures that no one dared to face, but she had no choice. Her mother was sick, and she could not wait for anyone else to find the cure. As she moved deeper into the valley, the air grew colder and the mist thicker. Shadows seemed to stretch and twist in ways that were not natural. The girl paused, gripping her basket tightly, her heart beating fast. She had been told that no human should wander here alone, but she had also been told that bravery sometimes meant facing fear. A sudden movement caught her eye. At first, she thought it was just the wind playing tricks, rustling the leaves. But then she saw it clearly, the shape of a massive creature lurking between the rocks. Its eyes glowed faintly through the fog, sharp and intense. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The stories had been true. The valley was home to a dragon predator. The creature stepped forward slowly, each movement deliberate, powerful. Its scales shimmered in the dim light, and smoke curled from its nostrils. Its wings, folded against its back, were enormous, and she could see the muscles ripple under its skin with each breath. The dragon's head tilted slightly as if it was studying her, judging her. She wanted to run, but her feet felt glued to the ground. She knew that any sudden move could trigger its attack. The dragon let out a low, rumbling growl that shook the ground beneath her. Her heart raced, and she clutched her basket tighter, wishing she had someone there with her, someone to protect her. But it was just her, alone, facing one of the deadliest predators in the land. Fear coursed through her body, sharp and heavy, but beneath it something else stirred, a sense of curiosity, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, the creature was not entirely evil. The dragon raised its massive head, nostrils flaring, smoke spiraling into the misty air. It let out a roar that echoed through the valley, a sound so powerful it made her knees shake. She wanted to scream, to run, but another sound caught her attention, a soft, pained snort. The dragon had roared in anger, yes, but this was different. This was not just a warning or a threat. There was pain in that sound. She took a careful step forward, her fear still present but mingled with something new. Concern. She realized that the creature's nostrils were swollen, red, and a sharp thorn was lodged deep inside. It must have caused incredible discomfort. That explained the roar, the smoke, the tension in its body. The dragon was dangerous, yes, but it was also suffering. For a moment, the girl thought about running. She had been told not to approach wild creatures. But something inside her refused to leave. She could not ignore another being's pain, even one that could kill her in an instant. Slowly, she knelt on the damp ground, keeping her movements calm and steady. She spoke softly, whispering words that came naturally, soothing tones that might reach the creature's ears if it could understand her. The dragon blinked, its glowing eyes fixed on her. It flinched as she moved closer, clearly unsure of her intentions. Its nostrils flared, and she could feel the heat of its breath, warm and smoky, against her skin. She inched closer still, her hands trembling but determined. She had never been so close to a dragon before, and the mix of fear and awe was overwhelming. Finally, she reached out. Her fingers brushed the thorn carefully, testing its position. The dragon snorted sharply, startled, and her heart leapt into her throat. She froze for a moment, holding her breath. Then, with all the courage she could summon, she grasped the thorn and pulled it gently. The dragon jerked back instinctively, a sharp hiss escaping from its throat, but she did not let go. Slowly, carefully, she freed the thorn from its nostril. For a moment, there was silence. The girl's hands were shaking, her chest heaving from adrenaline. The dragon, too, seemed frozen, unsure of what had just happened. Then it snorted again, this time a softer sound. Relief, maybe, or perhaps recognition. The girl stepped back, giving it space, and watched as the creature lowered its massive head slightly, studying her in a way that was not threatening. She realized then that the dragon was not just a mindless beast. It was intelligent, aware, and capable of understanding more than she had imagined. And in that moment, a strange bond began to form. She had faced her greatest fear, and in doing so, she had reached out with kindness. The dragon, in turn, had not attacked her, despite having every reason to do so. Her hands still trembling, she adjusted the basket on her arm and took a small step backward. The dragon's eyes followed her, not with anger, but with something harder to define. curiosity perhaps, or cautious respect. She knew this encounter was only the beginning. The valley was still dangerous, and she had not yet found the rare flower for her mother. But she also knew that something had changed. The predator that everyone feared might no longer be just a threat. As the mist swirled around them, she felt a strange sense of connection. Here in this quiet, hidden place, two very different beings had shared a moment that neither would forget. One was small, human, vulnerable in every way. The other was enormous, powerful, feared by all who knew the valley. And yet, for the first time, fear had been replaced by understanding. She took a deep breath and turned to continue her journey, her mind racing with what had just happened. She knew the stories of dragons were not always accurate. Sometimes the truth was far more complicated than the legends made it out to be, and as she moved forward, she realized that bravery was not about being fearless. It was about facing fear, even when it seemed impossible. Behind her, the dragon shifted slightly, watching her leave. Its nostrils flared again, but this time there was no roar, no anger, just a quiet acknowledgement, as if it understood that their paths had crossed for a reason. And for the girl, that small, silent understanding was more than enough. With the basket in her hand and the mist curling around her, she walked deeper into the valley, ready to face whatever came next. The encounter had changed her, filled her with a strange mix of awe and courage. She did not yet know how this dragon would fit into her life, or what dangers still awaited her, but she knew one thing with certainty. Fear could be met with compassion, and even the fiercest predator could be touched by kindness. And in the quiet valley, as the mist swallowed the path ahead, the dragon watched, its glowing eyes following the small human who had dared to step into its world. Something had shifted, a bond had begun, and neither of them would ever forget this moment. The valley seemed even quieter now, almost as if it was holding its breath after the girl's encounter with the dragon. Mist clung to the trees, and the air smelled damp and earthy. Birds rarely sang here, and even the wind moved cautiously, like it didn't want to disturb the tense calm. The girl stood still for a moment, trying to calm the rapid beating of her heart. She had just touched a creature so fierce, so feared by everyone in the nearby villages, and yet she had survived. More than that, she had seen something no one else had ever dared to see: pain. The thorn in the dragon's nostril had been deep and sharp. The moment it had pierced the dragon, it had caused incredible discomfort. Now that it was removed, the dragon seemed to move more freely, but the pain it had suffered lingered in its body. The girl realized that even a creature this powerful could suffer silently, hidden beneath scales and fire. She felt a strange mixture of awe and sympathy. Most people would have screamed and run at the sight of the dragon's massive claws and flaming eyes. She had stayed. And now she understood that her courage had opened a tiny door of trust. The dragon moved slightly, shifting its enormous body so that it was partly hidden behind the jagged rocks. The mist made its shape look even larger and more terrifying. The girl's first instinct was to take a step back, to give it space, but something inside her held her in place. The dragon's eyes, glowing faintly in the fog, were not filled with anger anymore. They were cautious, alert, almost curious. She could sense it thinking, evaluating, trying to understand whether she was a threat or something else entirely. The girl took a slow breath and lowered herself to the ground, sitting cross-legged on the damp earth. She knew that showing submission could help. Dragons, she had heard, were intelligent and could sense weakness, courage, and kindness. She spoke softly, though she didn't know if the creature could understand words. Her voice was calm and steady, carrying the simple truth. She had not come to hurt it. "I didn't mean to scare you," she whispered. "I only wanted to help." For a long moment, the dragon did not move. Its enormous head tilted slightly, nostrils flaring as it exhaled slowly. The girl watched the smoke curl into the mist, feeling its warmth even from a short distance. Every muscle in the dragon's body was tense, ready to strike if it sensed danger, yet it did not attack. Instead, it remained still, as if it were weighing her words, her intentions, her very presence. She had never felt more exposed in her life, yet also strangely safe, as if the creature had accepted her in a small, silent way. The girl's curiosity began to grow. She noticed details she had never imagined before. The scales along the dragon's neck glistened even in the dim light, strong and thick, yet almost soft-looking at the edges. The wings, folded tightly, were larger than any tree she had seen nearby. Its claws were sharp enough to tear through stone, and yet the creature had allowed her to come close. She realized that fear and power were not the same. A being could be dangerous and still be capable of gentleness. Then, she saw it. The faint mark on the dragon's nostril where the thorn had been lodged. A small trickle of blood had dried along its scales. The sight made her stomach twist with worry. The dragon had suffered silently, enduring a pain she could hardly imagine. Her hands itched to touch it again, to see if there was anything else she could do to help, but she knew she had to be careful. One wrong move, one sudden gesture, and it could turn on her in an instant. Instead, she stayed still, watching, observing every movement. She noticed the dragon's breathing begin to slow. The low growls of discomfort faded, replaced by soft, steady huffs of smoke. Its massive tail, which had been flicking nervously, now lay quietly against the ground. The girl realized that even though it was still tense, the dragon was beginning to relax. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it shifted its eyes from her hands to her face. She felt the intensity of its gaze, and it made her heart race. This creature could destroy her in seconds, and yet it chose to watch her instead. A thought crossed her mind. Perhaps it understood something deeper, something about intentions and trust. Humans could be dangerous, yes, but some were also capable of great kindness. She had risked herself to remove its pain, and in return, it seemed to recognize her courage and compassion. The valley, once a place of fear, now felt alive in a different way, full of possibilities rather than just danger. The dragon shifted again, this time moving closer. Its massive head lowered slightly, and its glowing eyes followed every small movement she made. The girl did not flinch. She had learned to stay calm, to control her fear enough to think clearly. Her mind raced with questions. Could she really befriend this creature? Could it ever trust a human so completely? And what would happen if it did? Suddenly, the dragon let out a sound she had never heard before. It was not a roar, not a growl, but something in between, a low rumbling noise that vibrated through the ground. It was almost as if it were communicating, a sound that carried meaning she could not yet understand. She tilted her head, listening carefully, trying to sense the emotion behind it. Fear, relief, recognition, perhaps all of these. She didn't know, but she felt a small spark of connection. Minutes passed like hours. Neither moved much, each observing the other. The girl began to feel a strange sense of respect for the dragon, not just for its power, but for the intelligence it displayed. She realized that courage was not only about facing fear, but also about understanding it. And this dragon, dangerous as it was, had allowed her to witness its pain, its vulnerability, its very essence. A soft breeze moved through the valley, carrying the scent of damp earth and moss. The mist swirled around the dragon, making its massive form seem even more otherworldly. The girl's hand moved slightly, almost unconsciously, as if reaching out to it again. The dragon flinched but did not strike. She stopped, keeping her hands visible, letting it understand that she meant no harm. For a moment, they just stared at each other, two beings from different worlds sharing the same space, breathing the same air. Then something surprising happened. The dragon lowered its head just a little more, as if inviting her closer. The girl's breath caught in her throat. She had not expected this. Every story she had heard about dragons painted them as merciless, destructive, impossible to tame, and yet here it was, a creature of immense power showing a small, almost imperceptible sign of trust. She understood that the bond forming between them was fragile, built on a single act of courage and compassion. Her mind wandered to her mother, lying sick at home, unaware of the danger her daughter had faced. The girl felt a pang of longing and determination. She had risked herself to help this dragon, but her journey was not yet over. She still needed to find the rare flower to heal her mother. Yet now, with the dragon nearby, the valley did not seem as threatening as it had before. There was an unspoken understanding. They had met, and in some small way they had acknowledged each other's presence, intentions, and courage. Hours seemed to pass as the girl and dragon remained in silent communication. The dragon's massive body relaxed slowly, the tension in its muscles easing. The girl took careful steps, testing the ground as she moved slightly closer, keeping her eyes on the dragon. It watched her every move, yet made no aggressive gesture. She realized that the thorn had not only caused physical pain but had also shaped the dragon's behavior. Its aggression had been a response to suffering, not inherent malice. With each passing moment, the girl's fear melted just a little. She realized that understanding and compassion were powerful tools, perhaps more powerful than weapons or fear. The dragon, for all its strength and danger, had responded to care. It had allowed her to see a side of it that no one else had witnessed. And in doing so, it had changed the way she viewed the valley, the creature, and even herself. The mist thickened as evening approached, shadows stretching across the ground. The girl knew she could not stay here forever. The dragon's trust was delicate, and she did not want to break it. Yet she also felt a strange confidence. She had faced her fear, helped a creature in pain, and survived. She had made a connection that went beyond words, beyond species. It was a bond built on empathy and courage, one that could grow if nurtured carefully. As she gathered her courage to leave, the dragon shifted its massive head slightly, following her with its glowing eyes. She did not look back, but she felt the weight of its gaze, a silent acknowledgement that their encounter was not over. The girl moved through the mist, each step careful but determined, knowing that she had learned something that no story or legend could teach. Sometimes bravery is not about fighting, but about reaching out. And so, the valley remained quiet once more. But now it held a different energy. Fear was still present, yes, but so was understanding, curiosity, and the first spark of trust. The dragon lay partially hidden, watching the small human disappear into the mist, and somewhere deep inside, something had shifted. Pain had been relieved, fear had been met with compassion, and the first fragile threads of an extraordinary bond had been woven. The girl continued her search for the rare flower, her heart lighter, her mind sharper, and her spirit braver than before. She did not yet know the adventures that lay ahead, nor the dangers that would test her courage even further. But she understood one truth clearly. Even the fiercest preda. The valley had grown darker as the sun dipped behind the distant mountains. Mist lingered in the trees, swirling softly around rocks and roots. The girl's basket, filled with herbs and a few carefully picked plants, swung gently in her hand as she moved cautiously along the uneven path. Her heart was still racing from her encounter with the dragon. She couldn't believe what had happened earlier. The dragon had allowed her to remove the thorn without attacking. Most people would never have dared to come so close. And yet, she had survived. But as she walked, a thought kept returning to her mind. The dragon had clearly been in pain, yet it had not attacked her out of instinct. It had been cautious, alert, and even curious. She realized something important. The dragon was not evil. It was just hurt. And pain could make anyone dangerous, even the strongest predator in the valley. The girl paused by a large rock to catch her breath. The air smelled of damp earth and moss, and a soft wind brushed against her face. Her fingers hovered over the basket, feeling the familiar weight of the plants she had collected. Each one was important, but none mattered more right now than understanding the dragon she had encountered. She wondered if it was still nearby. The fog was thick, hiding shapes and shadows, but instinctively she knew the dragon had not left. It did not take long for her to see it. In the mist, the dragon's massive silhouette appeared, partially hidden behind a jagged rock formation. Its glowing eyes focused on her, tracking her movements. She froze, not out of fear this time, but out of respect. The dragon had allowed her close once. She did not want to risk breaking the fragile trust that had begun. She lowered herself to the ground slowly, keeping her hands visible, showing that she meant no harm. The dragon shifted slightly, moving closer. Its enormous head lowered and its nostrils flared, steam rising in soft curls. The girl could see the mark where the thorn had been lodged. The wound had begun to heal, but she could tell it was still sore. She realized that the dragon might still be cautious and defensive because of the pain it had felt. She wanted to do more. Not just remove a thorn, but help it recover to show that she was not a threat. Carefully, she reached into her basket and pulled out some herbs she had collected earlier. These were known for their healing properties and could be used to make a soothing paste. Her hands trembled slightly as she approached the dragon, but she spoke softly, her voice calm and gentle. "This might help," she whispered, holding the mixture out carefully. She didn't know if the dragon would accept it, but she had to try. The dragon sniffed the air, its glowing eyes never leaving her face. It let out a low rumble, a sound that vibrated through the rocks and ground beneath them. The girl stayed still, showing patience, waiting for the dragon to decide. Slowly, it lowered its massive head a little closer to her, nostrils flaring as it smelled the herbs. Her heart pounded. She had never been this close to a dragon before, and every instinct told her to step back. But she stayed, trusting the small connection they had already formed. Step by step, she moved closer, applying the healing paste near the area where the thorn had been. The dragon flinched slightly but did not pull away. She worked carefully, making sure not to hurt it. She noticed how its breathing began to slow, less harsh and jagged than before. Relief seemed to flow through the dragon's body. The girl realized that small acts of care could change the course of a creature's behavior, no matter how fierce it was. Minutes passed as she applied the healing mixture, her eyes never leaving the dragon's. The dragon remained still, letting her do what she could. Occasionally it shifted its eyes to the surrounding valley, alert for danger, but it had begun to trust her presence. The girl felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. This was more than fear, more than relief. It was a bond forming, quiet and unspoken, between two beings from completely different worlds. Once she finished, she took a cautious step back, giving the dragon space. Its enormous eyes studied her, and for a moment she thought she saw what could only be described as recognition. The dragon lowered its head slightly, almost bowing, a gesture that was both powerful and gentle. The girl's heart leapt. She realized that this was a moment of understanding, a silent agreement that they would not harm each other. The valley seemed to change around them. The mist no longer felt threatening but protective, wrapping them in a quiet, almost sacred atmosphere. The girl realized that courage and compassion could overcome fear, even when facing the most terrifying of creatures. She had stepped into the dragon's world and offered care instead of threat, and in return the dragon had allowed her presence. The girl decided to sit on the ground nearby, maintaining a safe distance while keeping her eyes on the dragon. She wanted to observe, to learn, to understand more about this incredible creature. The dragon's eyes followed her, still glowing faintly in the mist, but they no longer carried anger or threat. Instead, they held curiosity, awareness, and a strange form of respect. As the evening deepened, the valley grew colder, but the girl felt strangely comforted by the dragon's presence. She realized that even though the creature was fierce and powerful, it had vulnerabilities, just like humans. The thorn had been a reminder that strength did not make one invincible. Pain and suffering could reach even the mightiest, and the way to help was through patience, courage, and care. The girl's thoughts drifted to her mother again. She wished her mother could see what she had seen, that even the most feared beings could respond to kindness. She wondered if people in the village would ever understand this. Most would run in terror at the mere sight of the dragon. Yet here she was, sitting quietly, sharing the valley with a creature that could crush her in seconds, and forming a connection that defied fear and expectation. Suddenly, a noise in the distance made her glance toward the trees. A small animal, perhaps a deer, darted through the mist. The dragon's massive head followed the movement, nostrils flaring, claws shifting slightly. But it did not attack. It was alert, yes, but restrained. The girl realized that the dragon's instincts were still strong, but her presence had taught it caution and control. She felt a growing sense of responsibility. If she could influence this creature, guide it and maintain its trust, perhaps she could shape the bond further. The girl reached into her basket again, this time pulling out a small piece of dried fruit she had kept for herself. She held it out tentatively. The dragon sniffed, cautious but curious. Slowly, it leaned closer and took the fruit gently with its massive snout. The girl's breath caught in her throat. This simple act, offering food, showing care, felt like a profound breakthrough. She realized that trust, once earned, could be strengthened by small, consistent gestures. Hours passed as she sat with the dragon, sharing small pieces of food and watching it adjust to her presence. The valley around them was still, almost reverent, as if acknowledging the unique bond forming between human and dragon. She felt a sense of peace she had never known before. Despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, she knew that this connection was real, and it had the potential to change everything. As the mist thickened with the approach of night, the girl knew it was time to move. She had learned much from this encounter, and she had grown braver in ways she had never imagined. The dragon watched her carefully as she stood, following her movements with keen eyes. She could feel its awareness, its intelligence, and perhaps even a hint of affection. She realized that this creature, once feared by all, could become more than a predator. It could become a protector, a companion, a guardian. With one last glance, the girl stepped cautiously down the path, keeping the dragon in her sight. She felt her confidence grow with every step, knowing that she had faced fear and offered compassion, and that in return the dragon had shown trust and restraint. She could not yet predict what the future held, but she knew that this encounter had changed her forever. The dragon lowered its massive head once more, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. It had allowed her to see its vulnerability, accept its pain, and offer care, and in return, the girl had earned its respect. She realized that courage was not always about fighting or running. It was about understanding, patience, and the willingness to act despite fear. The valley was quiet now, with only the soft sound of wind and distant water breaking the silence. The girl continued along the path, her mind alive with thoughts of what had happened. She had made a connection that few humans ever would. And, somewhere behind her, the dragon remained, watching, learning, and slowly beginning to understand the strange, small human who had dared to touch its pain. The night would be long, and the journey ahead was uncertain. But the girl knew one thing with absolute certainty. The encounter had not only changed the dragon, but had changed her as well. She had discovered the power of courage, compassion, and patience, and she had begun to weave a bond that could grow into something extraordinary. The valley had grown quiet again, almost as if it was waiting. Mist lingered over the trees, curling around rocks and roots, hiding the uneven paths and small streams that crisscrossed the land. The girl moved carefully, her basket swinging gently by her side. She had spent the day observing the dragon, feeding it small amounts of food, and applying the herbal paste to soothe its nostril. Each moment had been tense yet strangely peaceful. She had begun to feel a connection, one built on trust, patience, and understanding. As she walked, she sensed the dragon nearby before she saw it. Its presence was immense, yet there was a quiet restraint in the way it moved. The creature was no longer the roaring, angry predator she had first encountered. Its glowing eyes followed her from the mist, alert but calm. She realized that it had begun to trust her completely, allowing her to move in its space without fear. A sense of awe filled her heart. She had faced one of the fiercest creatures in the valley and had not only survived but had begun to form a bond that seemed impossible. Suddenly, a noise broke the quiet. A branch snapped somewhere in the dense forest and the girl froze. Her heart skipped a beat. She had learned to be cautious. Any sudden sound could trigger danger in the valley. But before she could react, she felt it, a massive shadow falling over her. She looked up and saw the dragon, its huge body between her and the sound. Its head turned sharply toward the forest, nostrils flaring, eyes glowing brighter than before. The girl's breath caught. She had never seen the dragon move so purposefully, so protectively. It was as if her safety was now its primary concern. The sound came again, smaller this time, like the rustle of an animal, but the dragon did not hesitate. It stepped forward, muscles tensing, wings slightly spread to make itself appear even larger. The girl realized with a mix of fear and amazement that the dragon had become her protector. Her small presence in the valley no longer went unnoticed. It was as if the dragon had claimed her, ready to defend her from any threat. The rustling grew louder and a small pack of wild animals emerged from the trees. They were ordinary forest creatures, but their sudden appearance in the dragon's territory made them dangerous. The dragon let out a low growl, a warning that resonated through the valley. The animals hesitated, sensing the power before them. The girl stood frozen, her heart racing. She had never imagined she would witness such a display of strength and guardianship. The dragon's roar was not just fearsome. It carried authority. The forest creatures scattered, retreating quickly from the valley. The girl exhaled slowly, her hand still trembling slightly. She had just witnessed her protector in action. The dragon turned its massive head toward her, and for a moment their eyes met. It was not just an animal looking at her. It was an intelligent being, aware of her presence and her importance. She felt a wave of gratitude and awe. This creature, once a threat, had become a guardian, responding to her courage and kindness. As the day turned to evening, the girl and dragon moved together through the valley. She kept her distance, but she could feel its protective gaze wherever she went. The dragon walked behind her, flanking her when paths narrowed, and keeping watch over the trees and mist. Every now and then it would let out a low rumble, a reminder that it was present and alert. The girl realized that the valley, once a place of fear, now felt safer. With the dragon by her side, she could face challenges she never would have dared to confront alone. They came upon a stream where the water ran clear and cold. The girl knelt to fill her basket with fresh herbs, and the dragon stood nearby, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. She could feel its muscles tense, ready to react to any sign of danger. For the first time, she realized how powerful this bond had become. She was no longer alone in the valley. She had a companion, a protector who was willing to risk itself for her. The girl began to speak softly, as if sharing her thoughts with the dragon. "I don't know if anyone would believe this," she said, "but I feel like we understand each other." The dragon tilted its massive head slightly, as if acknowledging her words. It was an unspoken conversation, one built on gestures, glances, and small acts of trust. She reached into her basket again and offered a piece of fruit. The dragon sniffed it carefully, then took it gently with its snout. She smiled, realizing that the dragon was learning to accept her presence as part of its life. Hours passed as they moved together through the valley. The mist thickened, wrapping the trees and rocks in a soft, quiet blanket. The girl noticed the dragon's behavior changing subtly. It no longer flinched at every sound. Its movements were smoother, more relaxed. She realized that her patience, her willingness to help, and her courage had not only earned its trust but had begun to shape its behavior. The dragon was becoming calmer, more aware, and even more intelligent in its interactions with her. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the path ahead. The girl looked up and saw a group of travelers entering the valley. They moved quickly, unaware of the dragon nearby. The girl's heart skipped a beat. She knew that they could be in danger if the dragon felt threatened by their presence. She whispered softly, trying to calm the situation. The dragon's eyes followed her, and for the first time she realized the depth of its understanding. It waited, listening to her guidance, allowing her to influence its actions. The travelers paused, noticing the dragon partially hidden in the mist. Fear spread across their faces, but the girl raised her hand, signaling them to stay calm. She had learned that fear could escalate quickly, but patience and clarity could diffuse even the tensest situations. The dragon remained still, its massive body tense but obedient to her silent commands. Slowly the travelers moved past, giving them space, and the girl felt a wave of relief wash over her. Night began to fall, and the valley grew colder. The girl found a sheltered spot among the rocks and trees. She sat down, and the dragon settled nearby, its massive body curling protectively around the area. She could feel its warmth, a strange comfort in the chill of the evening. She reached into her basket and shared a small portion of food, offering it to the dragon. It accepted, nuzzling her gently with its snout, a sign of trust and companionship. As she ate, the girl reflected on the day. She had learned so much about the dragon, about the valley, and about herself. Courage was not just about facing danger. It was about understanding, patience, and compassion. She had earned the dragon's trust, and in return it had become her protector. She realized that this bond was rare and precious, something that could grow and change both of them in ways she could not yet imagine. The valley was silent, save for the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant sound of running water. The dragon's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, scanning the mist for any sign of danger. The girl felt a deep sense of connection, knowing that she was no longer alone. She had found a companion in the most unlikely of places, and together, they had formed a bond built on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. As sleep approached, the girl leaned back against a tree, feeling the dragon's presence like a shield around her. She knew the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but she also knew that she would face them with courage and wisdom. The dragon had taught her that strength and kindness could coexist, that even the fiercest creature could be moved by care and compassion. The night grew darker, and stars began to appear above the misty valley. The girl closed her eyes briefly, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The dragon remained alert, yet calm, its presence a constant reassurance. She realized that their bond was more than friendship. It was a partnership, a connection that transcended fear and species. She had learned that trust once earned could become a source of protection, strength, and courage. Hours passed quietly. The girl remained near the dragon, feeling its slow, steady breathing. She could sense that it had accepted her completely, that it would protect her in ways no human ever could. She thought about the adventures that awaited them, the dangers that lay hidden in the valley, and the lessons she would continue to learn. With the dragon by her side, she felt ready to face anything. As dawn approached, the first light of morning broke through the mist. The valley glowed softly, and the dragon stood, stretching its massive wings. The girl watched in awe, realizing that this creature, once feared by all, had become her guardian. She felt a surge of gratitude and determination. She knew that their journey together was just beginning, and that with patience, courage, and care, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The dragon turned its head toward her, eyes glowing softly in the morning light. It made a low, rumbling sound, almost like a whisper. The girl smiled, understanding the meaning behind it. It was a promise, a silent vow of protection and loyalty, and in that moment she knew that they were no longer just a girl and a dragon. They were a team, bound by trust, courage, and the extraordinary bond that had grown between them in the heart of the valley. The valley was alive with morning light, though the mist still lingered in pockets between the rocks and trees. The girl woke slowly, feeling the warmth of the dragon nearby. Its massive body was curled protectively around the small clearing she had chosen to rest in, and for the first time, she felt completely safe. She had grown used to the rhythm of its presence, the rise and fall of its chest, the occasional snort, and the way it shifted slightly whenever she moved. The valley, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now felt like home, though she knew danger could appear at any moment. She rose quietly and adjusted her basket, checking the herbs she had collected over the past days. Each plant was valuable, but at this moment her thoughts were on the dragon and the bond they had formed. She knew that their relationship had changed both of them. She had shown it kindness and courage, and in return it had become her protector. But the valley was vast and danger was never far away. She had to stay alert even with the dragon by her side. As she walked along a narrow path flanked by rocks, the dragon moved silently behind her. Its enormous head swayed with each step, nostrils flaring, eyes scanning the mist. Every now and then it would let out a low rumble, not in anger but as a signal, a way of communicating that it was watching, guarding, and aware of everything around them. The girl felt comforted by its vigilance. She realized that she had never truly known what it meant to be protected, not just from fear or danger but from uncertainty itself. Suddenly a movement in the bushes caught her attention. She froze, her heart pounding. It could be a small animal, but in this valley even small things could pose threats. The dragon immediately shifted, muscles tensing, wings slightly spreading in a subtle display of power. The girl felt the ground tremble beneath its weight. A pair of glowing eyes appeared in the mist, and she realized they belonged to a wild predator, likely hunting for food. The dragon let out a low, warning growl, its tone deep and resonant, vibrating through the rocks and trees. The wild predator hesitated, sensing the dragon's presence. Its instinct screamed danger, and it knew it was no match for the creature guarding the girl. The girl's pulse raced as she watched the interaction. She had never seen anything so powerful and protective. She realized with awe that the dragon had claimed her as someone to defend, and it would not hesitate to act if needed. The predator lunged suddenly, testing the dragon's response. In an instant, the dragon reacted, moving with a speed that defied its massive size. Its claws dug into the earth as it shifted to block the predator, roaring loudly. The sound echoed through the valley, shaking leaves from trees and startling smaller animals. The predator backed off, intimidated by the dragon's sheer power. The girl stepped back, gripping her basket tightly, heart pounding from the intensity of the moment. After a tense few moments, the predator retreated into the mist, leaving the girl and the dragon alone. She exhaled slowly, her hands shaking slightly. The dragon turned its head toward her, eyes glowing softly, nostrils flaring in a gentle rhythm. It was as if it were saying without words, "I will protect you. No harm will come to you while I am near." The girl felt a wave of gratitude and relief. She realized that their bond had grown stronger in just a few days, forged through trust, courage, and the shared understanding that danger existed in the valley, but they would face it together. The girl continued walking, moving slowly through the mist. She had learned to read the dragon's signals, noticing subtle shifts in its posture or changes in its breathing. When it was tense, she knew to be careful. When it relaxed, she could move more freely. They had developed a rhythm, a silent communication that required no words. It was an extraordinary connection, one she had never experienced with anyone else, human or otherwise. As they moved deeper into the valley, the girl noticed signs of human activity, broken branches, footprints in the mud, and discarded tools. Someone else had been here recently, likely searching for the same herbs or resources she was collecting. She felt a flicker of caution. Not everyone in the valley was friendly, and some might pose a threat. The dragon, sensing her unease, moved slightly ahead, scanning the area. Its massive head swiveled, nostrils flaring as it inhaled every scent carried by the wind. A group of travelers emerged from the trees. They looked weary and cautious, scanning the mist as they walked. The girl's heart skipped a beat. She did not know if they were friendly, or if they would see the dragon as a threat. She froze, unsure of what to do. Before she could act, the dragon stepped forward, placing itself between her and the newcomers. Its body was enormous, and its wings created a shadow that stretched across the path. The travelers stopped abruptly, fear evident on their faces as they took in the sight of the glowing eyes and massive form before them. The girl raised her hand slowly, signaling for calm. The dragon's eyes shifted to her, waiting for guidance. She spoke softly, her voice calm but firm. "We mean no harm," she said. The dragon seemed to understand, lowering its massive head slightly, though it remained alert. The travelers exchanged nervous glances but slowly began to move past, giving them space. The girl felt a surge of relief. She realized that the dragon not only protected her physically, but also allowed her to influence the situation through calm and trust. As the day went on, the girl and dragon encountered more small challenges, fallen trees blocking the path, steep cliffs, and hidden streams. Each time the dragon guided her, sometimes with subtle nudges or gestures, other times with sheer presence, allowing her to feel secure enough to move forward. She marveled at its intelligence and patience. It was not just a creature of instinct. It seemed to think, reason, and respond in ways that were astonishing. At one point, a sudden storm rolled in, dark clouds covering the sky and rain beginning to fall in heavy sheets. The girl struggled to keep her basket and herbs dry, but the dragon stayed close, its massive wings partially shielding her from the rain. The sheer force of its body and presence created a small haven in the midst of the storm. She realized then that protection was not just about fighting threats. It was also about providing safety and comfort. She had a guardian who understood her needs even when she had not spoken them aloud. Hours passed and the rain subsided, leaving the valley glistening and fresh. The girl and dragon found a small cave along the path, providing shelter for the night. She prepared a small area to rest while the dragon settled nearby, curling its massive body around the entrance. She felt its warmth radiating toward her, a silent promise of vigilance and care. As she sat quietly, she reflected on everything that had happened. In such a short time, the dragon had transformed from a dangerous predator to a devoted protector. She had earned its trust, and it had accepted her presence in its world. The girl reached into her basket and offered a small portion of food to the dragon, which accepted it gently. She watched as it ate, feeling a profound sense of connection and responsibility. She realized that this bond was rare and precious, something she could nurture but must also respect. She had learned that courage, patience, and compassion could create a partnership stronger than fear or force. Night fell, and the valley grew quiet once more. Stars appeared through the thinning mist, twinkling above the trees and rocks. The girl leaned back against the cave wall, listening to the soft breathing of the dragon beside her. She felt safe, protected, and oddly at peace in a place that had once filled her with terror. The dragon's presence had changed everything. It was no longer just a creature of fear. It was her guardian, her companion, and her friend. She thought about the journey ahead. There would be more challenges, more dangers, and perhaps more creatures or humans who might not understand the bond she shared with the dragon, but she felt ready. With courage, patience, and trust, she knew they could face anything together. The dragon had proven its loyalty, its intelligence, and its willingness to protect her at any cost. She had never imagined such a connection could exist, yet here it was. Real, powerful, and life-changing. As she drifted toward sleep, the girl felt the dragon's warmth and presence surrounding her. She knew that this partnership would grow, and that together they could navigate the challenges of the valley, protect one another, and explore the mysteries of their world. For the first time, she felt truly understood, truly safe, and truly connected to another being. The dragon had become more than a protector. It had become her partner in every sense, and she knew that this bond would shape both of their lives in extraordinary ways. The valley was quiet that morning, bathed in a soft golden light as the sun rose above the mountains. Mist still clung to the trees and rocks, swirling gently in the early breeze. The girl woke with a sense of anticipation and a little nervousness. Today she knew their bond, the one between her and the dragon, would be tested in ways she could not fully imagine. The dragon was nearby, as it had been every day, its enormous body coiled protectively around the small clearing where she had rested. She could feel the warmth of its presence and the quiet strength that radiated from it, a strength she had grown to trust completely. She rose slowly, brushing off the dew that had collected on her clothes. The dragon shifted slightly, lifting its massive head to watch her with eyes that glowed softly in the morning light. It had become her companion, her protector, and her guide through the valley. But the girl understood that this trust and partnership were fragile. One wrong move, one lapse in caution, and everything they had built could be lost. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and whispered softly, "We can do this, together." They began walking toward the northern cliffs, a part of the valley that had always felt dangerous. The path was narrow and uneven, lined with jagged rocks and steep drops. The girl felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, but the dragon's presence reassured her. Its massive wings occasionally brushed against the mist, creating a soft, protective barrier around her. Every movement it made was calculated, alert, and protective, as if it could sense any threat before it arrived. As they moved deeper into the cliffs, the girl noticed a strange feeling in the air. The mist thickened unnaturally, and the wind carried a faint, metallic scent. Her heart began to race. She had faced danger before, but something about this felt different, more serious. The dragon's eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air. It let out a low, rumbling growl, a warning that the girl understood immediately. Danger was close, and it was not ordinary. Suddenly, a shadow passed across the cliffside. The girl froze, her breath caught in her throat. Out of the mist emerged a group of hostile creatures, wild predators she had never seen before. Their eyes glowed with hunger, and their movements were quick and calculated. The girl's stomach twisted with fear, but she did not step back. Instead, she stayed close to the dragon, feeling its protective presence surround her. She knew that together, they could face this threat. The creatures approached cautiously at first, testing the dragon's response. The dragon stepped forward, its massive body blocking the girl from view, nostrils flaring and wings partially spread. Its roar echoed through the cliffs, a sound so powerful that the rocks themselves seemed to vibrate. The predators hesitated, their instincts telling them that this was no ordinary guardian. The girl watched in awe, feeling a surge of confidence. She had seen the dragon's power before, but this moment showed the full extent of its strength and loyalty. The lead predator lunged suddenly, moving faster than the eye could follow. In an instant, the dragon reacted. Its massive claws struck the ground, creating a shockwave that forced the predator back. Another predator attempted to flank them, but the dragon spun with incredible speed, wings beating the air, sending the creature tumbling down the cliffside. The girl's heart pounded, both with fear and amazement. She had never witnessed such precision, intelligence, and power in action. The dragon was not just protecting her, it was fighting strategically, thinking and reacting as if it understood the stakes completely. The girl stayed low, keeping her hands visible, and whispered softly, "It's okay, we can do this, trust me." The dragon's eyes flicked toward her, and she felt the acknowledgement in that glance. They were a team, moving in sync without needing words. The predators regrouped, circling cautiously, but the dragon did not hesitate. It spread its wings fully, creating a barrier of immense size and power. Its glowing eyes focused, nostrils flaring, and it let out another roar that shook the cliffs and echoed through the valley. The predators attacked again, more aggressively this time. The dragon moved with precision, striking, blocking, and guiding them away from the girl. She realized that her presence had influenced the dragon's behavior as much as its protection influenced her safety. They were learning from each other, reacting to instincts and signals that were silent yet powerful. Each movement of the dragon was deliberate, each roar calculated to intimidate without unnecessary harm. Time seemed to stretch as the battle continued. The girl could feel her own pulse racing, her senses heightened. She noticed every detail, the shifting clouds of mist, the glint of claws, the flash of teeth, the rise and fall of the dragon's massive body. She realized that courage was not about ignoring fear, but about moving forward despite it. And right now, courage meant standing with the dragon, trusting in its strength and their shared bond. After a tense hour, the last of the predators fled, disappearing into the cliffs and mist. The valley was silent once more, except for the soft sound of the dragon's breathing and the distant rush of a waterfall. The girl's legs trembled, but she felt an overwhelming sense of relief and accomplishment. The dragon lowered its head toward her, nostrils flaring gently, eyes glowing softly, and nuzzled her lightly. She reached out, running her hand over its massive snout, feeling the warmth and power beneath her touch. It was a moment of deep connection, a silent acknowledgement of trust, bravery, and mutual respect. The girl and dragon remained at the cliffs for a while, catching their breath and observing the valley below. She realized that the dragon had not only protected her, but had also become her teacher. It had shown her the importance of courage, patience, and trust. It had shown her that strength was not only about power, but also about protection and understanding. And most importantly, it had shown her that bonds once earned could change lives forever. As the sun began to set, painting the valley in shades of gold and crimson, the girl felt a wave of gratitude. She thought about the first moment she had removed the thorn from the dragon's nostril, an act of courage and care that had sparked this extraordinary journey. What had started as a single moment of bravery had grown into a partnership, a bond that could withstand fear, danger, and the unknown. She smiled softly, realizing that life could be transformed by small acts of kindness and courage. The dragon shifted beside her, wings folding gently, tail curling protectively around the clearing. It was no longer a fearsome predator in her eyes, but a true companion, a protector and a friend. She reached into her basket and offered a small piece of food, which the dragon accepted with a gentle nuzzle. They had survived the day, faced danger together, and emerged stronger and more united. Night fell, and the valley grew quiet and still. Stars appeared above, twinkling through the thinning mist, casting a soft glow on the rocks and trees. The girl lay down near the dragon, feeling the warmth and safety of its presence. She thought about the journey ahead, the adventures they would share, and the challenges that might test their bond even further. But for the first time, she felt ready. With courage, trust, and understanding, they could face anything together. The dragon let out a soft rumble, a sound that carried reassurance and loyalty. The girl smiled, realizing that this journey had taught her more than she could ever have imagined. She had faced fear, shown compassion, and earned the trust of one of the fiercest creatures in the valley. And in return, she had received protection, guidance, and a connection that transcended words. As she drifted into sleep, she felt the dragon's steady presence beside her, a living shield of strength and friendship. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a team, bound by courage, trust, and the extraordinary bond that had begun with a simple act of kindness. The valley remained quiet under the stars, holding the secrets of their journey, the lessons learned, and the partnership forged. The girl and the dragon had changed each other's lives forever, proving that even in a world filled with danger, trust and compassion could create something extraordinary. And as the mist swirled gently around them, the valley seemed to watch. Over them, a silent witness to a story of bravery, protection, and the remarkable bond between a human and a dragon.